I have the most colourful inbox. In between all the abuse, inquiries, occasional thanks, occasional death threat, I do get some quite interesting invitations, and no more so than a couple of months ago when I got an invitation from the Chinese embassy in Zagreb asking me if I'd be interested in an 11-day trip to China, to Beijing, Shannxi, and Zhejiang provinces. Never having been to China, this invitation was totally out of the blue, and of course I accepted, and so filled in the various paperwork. And I found myself on a program for the Central East European China initiative, where they are working very, very hard to build connections, networks, business connections with the countries of Central Eastern Europe as part of their Road and Belt initiative. And so there were 13 journalists from one each from all the way down from Greece up to Poland who were invited on this trip, on a sort of fact-finding, educating trip, which was a mixture of culture, tourism, some expos and seminars, and then also tour of some of the fantastic technological advances that China's made. And I've traveled a lot. This was my 99th country, but I haven't really traveled much in the last few years outside of Croatia. And so I was a little bit nervous about going into a country of 1.5 billion or however many it is, coming from a Croatia which has only 4 million people, which has been my home for the last 23 years, especially as I was coming from a 7-day cruise in the Adriatic with just 20 people on board and the rest of the Adriatic to myself. But I arrived, I guess I had some stereotypes about China, but I went with a very, very open mind, not sure what to expect, but willing to embrace what then was. I was really, really impressed by Beijing for a number of reasons. For our first stop, I was expecting so many people, crowds, like I lived in Japan back in 2002. But actually, I found central Beijing very, very pleasant to walk in, very leafy, looked like very much like any sort of like Central European sort of city, really. And I wasn't hassled at all. And I found walking down towards the Forbidden City was just a really, really magical thing. And seeing all these ladies dressed up in their traditional attire was really, really special. And so that was my sort of introduction to Beijing. We did a lot of sort of tourism. We went to the archaeological museum, looking at the history of China going back thousands and thousands of years. This is one of the things I really liked about my trip there, though. They really, really value their culture, their tradition, and they try and weave it into everyday life in as many ways as possible. We also then obviously went to the Great Wall of China, which was something that's been on my bucket list for years, never got to pursue it. I was very happy to see there was a cable car store with so much walking. And of course, when you're there is a tradition that you leave a little note for your country in one of the towers, and represented in Croatia, this is what I do. So inside one of the towers of the Great Wall of China, where it's traditional to leave a message, and when you are representing Croatia, what is the only message you can possibly leave? Hajduk živi viečno. Here we are at the Great Wall of China, which is 21,000 kilometers long, apparently. And one of the things we say in Croatia, we're very proud, is that we have the second longest fortified stone wall in the world outside of China. Here we have one 21,000 kilometers. How big is the wall in stone? 5,500 meters. Number 2. But also, there was obviously a work and media element to the sort of thing, and we had a very nice welcome from the All China Journalists Association, which was hosting us for the whole trip, just to sort of meet them at a little round table on the first day. And then we had a really fascinating tour of the China Global Television Network, which unfortunately we weren't allowed to film. But what was really, really interesting for me afterwards was coming out of there, we were paired up with different Chinese journalists, all speaking fluent languages from Albanian to Hungarian to Croatian to Macedonian to Polish to Bulgarian. And they were all paired off with our individual journalists. And this was, to me, was a real symbol of how seriously China is taking this partnership between Central and Eastern Europe, because they see lots of opportunity. Obviously, Croatia and China are very well known for the biggest infrastructure projects that was ever constructed in Croatia, the Feliceas Bridge. The 300 million euro project, which opened in 2022, was built by a Chinese company. And so they've got this initiative now, which is this Central East European China Expo. And every year they have this thing where they bring together all the movers and shakers between the two regions to enhance trade and communication and so on. And there's also a permanent pavilion of Central East European products in Ningbo. which is a chance for all countries in this region to showcase their wares for retail and for wholesale, and to do business, which is a great initiative. I went to the one for Croatia, and this is what I found. I was a little bit embarrassed, if I'm totally honest.
So we're here in the Croatian pavilion as it's advertised, and we're on the hunt for a Croatian product. Can we find a Croatian product? Let's have a look here. A lot of stuff from Serbia. This is the heart of the Croatian product. I don't know how much money we're paying for this pavilion, but it's not looking good so far. Let's have a look here. Nice bit of Serbian. Very, very good. All the way through. And what's this? Actually, on the top shelf here we have Eločki Podrumi. We've got a little bit of a Croatian flag. Down here, a bit more Traminac from Bolfan. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. Nothing more. We even have Nikola Tesla. Was he a Serb or a Croat? Well, in this pavilion, he's in a Croatian pavilion with a Serbian label. There we go. And even more interestingly, if you go to the map of Bosnia and Herzegovina, nice idea, but then if you actually take a closer look at the wine, it comes from Serbia. There we go. And if you want to discuss all this, you can do so in the comfort of the multicultural seating table here.
After Beijing, we flew to Zhejiang, which was 2 hours away. The plane was 2 hours late. I was very impressed by Air China because they provided a hot meal for everybody as part of the policy. Not something you get in the Croatia Airlines, I'm sure. We went around there, we had a tour of the old town in the evening, but the real magic was the next day when we went to what was probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen in my life, which was the fabulous terracotta army from the 2nd century BC. These 8,000 warriors, and of course, just you see it on YouTube, you see photos of it, and until you actually go and see it very close of it was just absolutely incredible. And while that was the China of the past, we also went to visit China of the future. And we went to the China-Europe Railway Express in Zhejiang, which is an absolute phenomenal rail terminal which they built to handle, I can't remember the number of the cargo, and the network they built slowly over decades, this road and belt project where they're connecting infrastructure so that the whole world can trade. And so we saw these trains going off to Hungary and to Poland and stuff. And yeah, they're building a whole industry in Zhejiang just to service this need, and then all the stuff's going out. And just the scale of it and the organization, it was really, really, really quite incredible. And in the evening, we went to the Datang Eberite City, which it's a little bit advent in Zagreb, but it's 365 days of the year. It's 2 kilometers of non-stop entertainment, and we just had a really nice time. And again, you see this idea of bringing in the tradition and the culture of China into everyday entertainment, and it was really well done. There were loads and loads of different acts going on. We can actually go and sing ourselves if we wanted to. Not that I did, but that was a really, really special part of the trip. And while that was the fast, we went into the present, and we were there for the Silk Road International Expo, which kicked off in Xi'an the same day. So we went on that. That was, again, a really, really big effort from China to engage with the rest of the world and to bring people on board for this. And after that, we were due to take a flight to Ningbo, which is our next stop. But one of our party decided that it'd be really nice if you check out the subway in one of these cities. And so had a bit of a diversion there. We had a full tour of the metro and how it all works, including going to the baby's changing room, which, I mean, honestly, I was totally blown away. This was a stop in the middle of nowhere on the way to the airport in Xiao. And look at the cleanliness, look at the services. Absolutely fantastic. I was really, really impressed by cleanliness and by the public transport of everything you have in China. And so on to Ningbo, which turned out to be my favorite city of all. I think it was a city that I really got the impression that they worked hard and really, really played hard. And we were there ostensibly for the opening of the CEEC forum, which every year they bring together all the different players between Central Eastern Europe and China. And there was a deputy prime minister of Bulgaria was there, I think. There was the former prime minister of Romania. There was a minister of Serbia. Sadly, there wasn't very much representation in Croatia, but this was a bit disappointing. I really thought this is a big, big opportunity for Croatia, and it seems that they're not really taking it so far. After that, we had a media roundtable, which was sprung upon us a little bit, and we all had to talk about 4 minutes on the responsibilities of media in the era of AI. So there were about 50 of us around the table that will give you our sort of 4-minute presentation on that. And then we went into really phenomenal place called Ningbo Old Bund, which was just a super place full of bars, full of fun, full of music. And it was actually quite hard to find a beer in China. At least I found that way. Maybe I went to the wrong places, but there was certain places if you went there, then all the bars were in the same place. But if you didn't know where you were going, like the first night we were staying at Pass Plaza in Beijing, and we were asking where's the local bar, and we were told to take a taxi 4 kilometers away. And also the airports, they don't have bars with beers unless you're in the VIP section. And the only way you get a drink is if you go to the shop and buy a can of that. And the prices in the airports are so super cheap. I was really, really surprised. There was a very big difference. The other difference being you also have to surrender your lighter as you enter the airport. So for a smoker, you need to go a bit cold turkey. But this Ningbo Olvuns was just full of life. And so many local people were just willing to chat, wanted to chat. I found the Chinese people to be incredibly friendly, incredibly open, wanting to know where you're from, wanting to know what's going on, just wanting to exchange things. And I also found that it was probably the friendliest place I've ever been in terms of asking for directions. English wasn't widely spoken, but everywhere I went where I said, sorry, do you speak English? They would say, no, wait. And they would take out their phone, they had an application, and they would say, speak into the phone, please. So you speak into the phone, somebody wants it, they got the translation, they then would speak in, and then they'll give you the translation back. And it happened every single time without exception. I mean, normally in Croatia or UK, you speak English? No. And then they would just you just walk away. But every single time they stopped. And in the duty-free shop at the airport, I wanted to buy some traditional Chinese sweets for my kids, which is quite an ordeal if nobody speaks English. And I basically just said into this, to the sales girl, into her phone, I said, I'm looking to buy some traditional sweets for my kids. Can you show me what's around or what's on offer and blah, blah, blah. And she was explaining everything, translating. It was the easiest shopping I've ever done in my life. So technology was a really, really well. So Ningbo to me was a really, really sort of fun place. There was a lot going on business-wise. There's a lot going on social life. There was also a street food festival with all the traditional foods of the Central East European countries, which I thought was a great idea, and my Chinese colleagues were very excited to try. And unfortunately, Croatia only had fruit olive, and that was it. They didn't even have any wine or anything, whereas Slovakia and Slovenia had some really, really exceptional stand. But again, another missed opportunity for Croatia. And then the next day we went to there was a Central East European China local mayors forum. And so there were all these different mayors from all over Central East and Eastern Europe. Fortunately, not so many, but I did see any from Croatia. Apart from one late, we came to sign an agreement with Ningbo from Rijeka. Again, a missed opportunity, I think, for Croatia. And then after that, we went to Zhejiang, which is the biggest commercial port in the world. And what an operation to see the heartbeats of China just moving. As we came down the motorway, every other vehicle going there was a truck with a container. And we went, we're given a tour, given some few statistics. There was lots of statistics all trip. And then we were watching this ship just loading its containers, and it was just poetry in motion. And all these containers to Europe are going to 3 different ports: Gdansk in Poland, Gdańsk, Athens, and Popper in Slovenia. And they're doing massive business. To Croatia, nothing yet, and again, another missed opportunity. After the tour of the port, we then went on to our 4th city, Shannxi, which is also known as the Venice of the East, and it's a beautiful town with amazing rivers and canals and so on. We didn't get so much time to spend there, unfortunately, because we had so many other things to do. But it's a really nice extra addition, and the hotel, the complex was fantastic. Next day, we started off. We went to what I would describe as maybe a model village called Patang, and we were taken out there just to show village life. It was pretty. It was very interesting to learn. It didn't feel to me as though this was like a real Chinese village. And obviously, it was a much more successful. But it was interesting to see the different village ways. I was obviously very aware that I'm on a trip where everything is curated. But what I liked about it is we had enough freedom to go out in the evenings and to meet people. And we got a really good cross-section of people of the nets. People are very, very friendly. And it seems to me that life in China is actually, especially in the cities where we were, is pretty good. People are doing trade. They're working hard. Maybe not earning as much as they wanted to, but there are so many cars on the street. The traffic was insane in Beijing. And it seems to be a little country on the move, and people seem, the ones we met, to be fairly, fairly happy. I do concede that we weren't shown everything, and we didn't travel around the whole country. It was just an 11-day trip. And then onto the Guye Longshan winery to check out the famous rice wine, which was an experience. We followed that by a boat ride. Probably the most interesting lunch there, because the food in general I thought was good. It was very, very varied. The traditional way of doing it is you have like a table of like 12 people, and then you have this revolving table in front of you, and all the dishes are put on, and you don't really know what you're eating. You see a menu, but then it isn't really explained, and you just see things, and you're sort of fighting to try and get the food. And everything was great.
Okay, here we are. These guys, they couldn't wait. They were so hungry, but we had, really, but we got this amazing food going around. And it's just like some of this stuff. Look at this. We've got stir-fried shrimp balls with black truffle and greens, Thai-style curry braised beef, stir-fried Australian scallops with XO sauce, pan-fried rainbow trout with passion fruit sauce. How about that? Grilled blacker pepper lamb chop, and so on. And I'm just waiting for the passion fruit to come round. It's making its way. Will there be any left by the time I get here? We have a very hungry Bulgarian here to my right. Will you leave some for us?
Very hungry.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Here we go. Right, I may have to go off camera now because the passion fruit sauce is steaming out on its own accord. This food looks amazing. There'll be nothing for me, and the lady from Prague is delved in. Yes. Dobrotek.
Apart from the pigeon soup, I have to put a special memory, because I had this poor little pigeon sort of popped out of the plate, was just looking me straight in the eyes, a bit sad, and I decided to miss that. But in general, I thought the food was really interesting to try. I wouldn't say it was the most amazing good I've ever had, but it's definitely part of the experience. And from there, we went to the Kayan scenic area, where we saw these amazing Buddha statues. And it was a nature. China is full of incredible nature, and it was just really nice to get away from the city and out into these things. And I think the Chinese really appreciates the nature they have, and it was really nice to have that sort of balance. And then we took our final bus journey of the trip to Hangzhou, which is an incredible city in terms of what it's already given to the world. This is the home of CEEC. This is the home of Alibaba. And indeed, one of the highlights of the trip for me was the next morning we had a tour of Alibaba HQ. And my God, these guys are so far ahead. And this is a company which went from an idea in 1999, so 26 years ago, on the Great Wall of China, so now doing 100 million packages a day globally. And they have distribution points now all over the place, including one at 5,000 meters above sea level on Mount Everest. To me, also, the Alibaba corporate culture, the way they explained everything, was probably the best presentation I've ever seen of a company anywhere in the world. And one of the really, really special things we had in Hangzhou was Westlake, which is a really, really beautiful natural spot. We went out for a boat trip there as well. And this is where, when Nixon came to China in 1973, this was the first place they took it. China really does have some incredible, incredible nature. And then that was it. Then it was time to go. 11 days flew past. I mean, so many sort of conclusions, really. But one of the things I really enjoyed was the fact to have all these journalists from Poland to Greece coming together. And we had like 13 days in a sort of fairly foreign environment, getting to know each other, talking about our past. There were quite a few socialists on the trip, so there was all that sort of parking back to the socialist time of like Yugoslavia and the Iron Curtain and so on. And they were aged from 21 from Albania to, I was the oldest at 56. But it was a really, really special time. We all got together very nicely, and I really enjoyed the banter between us. And I think my favorite comment was from the young Albanian guy who was telling me about Enver Hoxha, who was the dictator in Albania, who's one of his famous slogans was, "Together, China and Albania are half the world." I thought it was fantastic. It was really nice. I also have to talk about the hotels. I mean, we obviously stayed in Western hotels, but these were really, really, really high-class 4-5-star hotels. And some of the hotel rooms were as good as I've stayed anywhere. They were huge as well. And then they had the Japanese-style toilets, which is obviously fun. The last one we stayed in, my bed literally could have slept 6 people. It was, but really, really high level of comfort, which I wasn't really expecting. I have to also talk about the communications, because there's a whole thing about censorship and the internet being blocked in China and so on. And I, like everybody else, I got my VPN before I went. And when I got there, everything was fine. First day, everything was perfect. And then we were given the Chinese SIM card, for the trip with 70 gigabytes. Once I installed that, my VPN wiped out completely, and I realized how vulnerable I was to Google going away from my life, because Google and Meta are both banned in China, and so I couldn't get on my internet because I had only one browser, Google Chrome. I couldn't get my email through somebody else because I was on Gmail. I also had double notification, so I was completely nutsily screwed. I was actually offline for 30 days. Which was absolutely beautiful, because for 30 days, I didn't hear the word Trump or Yassara. And, in conclusion, I would say, did my perception of China change over this trip? Absolutely. I'm fully aware I was on a government program, but also I'm very aware of the fact that what we're fed in the West is not necessarily what's going on the range. China has a plan. They're moving very aggressively forward. They want to trade, and they're working very, very hard. The amount of investment they put into small countries like Croatia, North Macedonia, and so on, to me was really, really, really impressive. And the level of detail and attention. And I truly believe that the more interaction at the sort of person-to-person level we have between China and this region, the better the understanding. And there is definitely lots and lots and lots of opportunity here. And I really hope that Croatia steps up a little bit, because it would almost a bit embarrassing how little the Croatian government and the trade board has been interacting. So I would say amazing trip. It was some of the best emails I've had this year for sure. And I look forward to going back, and I look forward to seeing what we can do to push the connection between China and Croatia for